I think this does feel quite personal in that it is about rewriting history and showing that actually we are part of this community. When I say we, I mean, British Asians go back a long, long way, but also the relationship between India and England goes back a long way. So I guess it is quite personal, and there are certain things that I do actually feel quite angry about, i.e. the empire. When I hear apologists saying, oh, do you know what, the empire wasn't that bad. Equally, there's a relationship between the English and the Indians which goes back a long way that I think is important to celebrate. There's very little about that period of history. There was literally one book that I found called Ayahs and Princes by an old school teacher. And so she'd written this sort of incredibly comprehensive list of every single Asian that had come to Britain from the 17th century onwards. Fascinating, because it had Abdul Karim and it had all the sailors, as they called them, Luskers, and the Ayahs, these nannies. And it also had a lot of stuff about the empire and the intellectuals that were here. So people like Mahatma Gandhi were here as a young man, Jinnah, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was the first Premier of Pakistan. They were all knocking around in Victorian Britain. Fascinating. And it was all in this one book. And so I sort of pored over the book and then went off to the British Library, basically, and spent many happy hours in the British Library. Ultimately, these are my people. So that's why it's been quite interesting to write about. But obviously it's also about different classes. So you've got your working classes, as in the domestic servants, but then you've got all your fantastic intellectuals. And for me, Dadabhai Naoroji, the first Indian MP, was a fantastic character. He was here since 1850. So by the time he becomes a Liberal MP in 1892, he's already been here for 42 years. And, fantastic advocate of independence, the precursor to independence for India. And at one point, apparently, Mahatma Gandhi visited London and went to see Dadabhai Naoroji. And he had come specifically with the purpose of learning French, ballroom dancing, and how to become an English gentleman. But his funds ran out really quickly. So he just basically set up the Vegetarian Society instead, and then went off to South Africa, and of course the rest is history. But in that moment where he met Dadabhai, they apparently, I think the younger man was very, very influenced by the older man. And so there were a lot of things that Gandhi then went on to preach, which come directly from Dadabhai, which is quite an interesting, I think a very interesting moment in history. I realised that not many people did know this. I mean, and certainly when I wrote the play originally, Michael Boyd, who was then the artistic director, kept saying I didn't know anything about this. And, really, I suppose a lot of black people came over on the Windrush, and a lot of Asians came over in the 60s and 70s. But actually, to be honest, we've been knocking around here for much, much longer.